So let me open this up, Hew. Last summer in Belgium, I met with Marla, a remarkable recent law school graduate. Remarkable woman. She was, her father was Irish, her mother was Spanish. She had lived and worked in China and spoke 2 or 3 Chinese dialects. She had majored at the Sorbonne in France in French literature. And she had also worked for an international organization in Africa and was mastering Swahili. And so I thought I asked her a very clever question. I said, "What language do you dream in?" And she just stared at me, and she said, "I don't understand the question." She says, I don't understand the question. I'm just a person, and that's my being. And if you ask me the question in English, I'll probably, Sam, you know what I'm talking about. She'll say, I'll probably be thinking of the answer in English, but I have no concept of that. And it struck me that for my, outdated idea that we are evolving as a people as something quite different, where increasingly, but certainly our children, our children's children, are becoming more global, more truly international in a way, a sense that it's hard even for me to imagine. Now, the reason this is relevant, I believe, is because our guest who is about to speak and present is, in my view, a truly international person. And his art, which is so compelling, I believe it cannot, and I hope I'm getting this right, Phil, right, or Hew. I hope I'm getting this, everything else, but it would be wrong to characterize him or to think of him in a pigeonhole. Or what type of artist, or what medium does he use? What are his topics? What are his themes? Because he's simply an artist.
That's right.
And he's an artist, and I first spotted him on the plane, the floodplain at Runnymede, standing there very dramatically by the sculpture that you're going to hear about today, which was also unbelievably dramatic and full of contrasts. In a way, that floodplain is completely empty. There's a little tiny temple that you saw a picture of today off in a corner. But the floodplain is basically empty. Not anymore, because his sculpture stands there. And when you see from a distance his stark sculpture, it's exquisitely simple and unbelievably powerful, almost in an abstract way, like a Catalan landscape in a way, to me. This is my personal, take on it. But then when you approach, you see the extraordinary complexity in each unit of the entire piece. I'll let him describe it. But then when you learn about his approach to art and how he executes it in sculpture and in visual art, and the different things that he's done over his career, you'll realize that it doesn't fall into any category. So it's a great privilege for me. His bio and where he studied, and let's just stipulate, we're in a law school, we can do that his work has been shown, from the Tate to other major places, and of course, the pinnacle, the Brooklyn Art Museum, it's been there. And he is no stranger to these shores and has a major exhibition coming up soon. So please join me in welcoming Hew Locke, the artist.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Because I'm not sure this, okay, people can hear me. Good, that's a relief, right, okay. Quick background, I was born in Edinburgh, but from the age of 4.5 or about, I lived in Guyana until I was 21, and then came back and been living in England ever since, a very long time. hit you some images. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show some images, a few images of where my work, a few images of pieces so you get an idea of the variety of what's going on. This is a piece called For Those in Peril on the Sea. And it's installed at the Perez Art Museum, Miami. And it's a collection of votive boats. In Europe, in cathedrals, you sometimes can see boats hanging suspended in the air. And these boats are votive boats donated by ship captains for a life successfully survived at sea. I decided to make a contemporary version of this, and this is it. And it's boats ranging from issues, refugees, including issues with a Somali pirate issues at the time, including things like tourist boats and stuff like that. Move on. Right, these are two completely different pieces. The piece on the left-hand side called Sin Eater. Sin Eater is, this is a beads and cord glued to the wall, and it's at the shown at the Blue Coat Gallery in Liverpool. Now, the Blue Coat Gallery was built with slave trade money, and this piece is like a sin eater eating the sins of the building. It actually goes into the guts of the building up there. They took it down. There was a major fire 3 weeks after they took it down, so it obviously didn't quite work. This one here, this is called Kohinoor, and this is one of my series of images of the Queen. This is in Brooklyn, the collection of Brooklyn Museum, and what to say? I've been making images of the Queen for quite a while. It's about ideas of nationhood. It's quite complex. It's personal. My opinion of the Queen is I'm not a Republican in the sense of the British sense of the word, i.e. wanting to have a republic, nor am I a royalist. I'm a neutrally fascinated in the idea of the Queen. And I think showing an image that I made of the Queen as one on US Constitution Day is sort of interesting. Okay, so here comes the site. And this is the site at Runnymede. By the way, normally I'm doing this without notes, but there's so many complicated things about this project that I'm having to operate with notes. That's how it goes. Okay, so this is a site, and an organization called Situations in Bristol were asked by Surrey County Council and the National Trust of the UK to find an artist and run a process of selection to produce a piece of sculpture, which is a memorial for the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta. I agonized about this quite a bit, and I sort of came up with the idea that what I wanted to make was something which was international, something which wasn't just a British thing, something, because I felt the document had become something quite wide, and it's gone way beyond the shores of the UK. So, early ideas. And the top idea, which of 12 bronze children dressed in everyday clothes, and they were going to be carrying swords, toy swords, and toy scales, basically depicting the justice figure, Lady Justice. This became a bit United Colors of Benetton. It became it was just too embarrassing, you know. So that died to death. That wasn't going to work. The idea, this idea below, it was going to be arches, but blasted open prison jail things stretched around the field. That again, obviously embarrassing. That was not going to work at all, you know. So because I'm having to please a committee, so I'm thinking about what will they go with. And so this is one of the ideas I did come up with. And this is the idea of a black figure of Lady Justice, the justice figure. There are a few in the US, there are none in the UK. This was coming from the idea of there's a black teenager called Stephen Lawrence in the UK who was killed by white racist skinhead types. And he was killed in the early 90s. His mother, Doreen Lawrence, campaigned for many, many years for retribution, for justice for him. And so it seemed like a nice idea. It seemed like a right idea, Arthurian and that. But this, again, was rejected by the committee because it wasn't seen as being inclusive enough, but also it lacked the thing which they felt. They didn't see my Arthurian feel of it, but what it lacked for them was interactivity. It wasn't interactive enough. And this idea, which is what came to me from sitting in Runnymede Field one warm summer afternoon, thinking, right, this is the way to go. The thing we have left over from Magna Carta, evolving from all the year, over hundreds of years, is that clause 39, is the idea of trial by jury. And I thought what we need, quite simple, 12 jury chairs, 12 bronze chairs in the middle of the field for people to sit down and have a debate, an argument about ideas of law and something international. So what I started with up here is this is a collage proposal. So these are collages. This one here obviously wasn't going to work. Disability chair with wheelchairs, and this, you know, kind of a bit wrong. You know, it's a bit patronizing actually, if I'm honest with you. It didn't work, that one. And so these are my initial ideas, but this was the idea, and this one, these are ideas of which didn't quite make it. Neither this one, and these are felt to be too much like thrones, whereas this one here was an idea which came to me one day, and I thought, this is it. And this is the beginning of something working. And this is based in Nelson Mandela's prison cell. And the arms of this chair, by the way, these are maquettes. These are small models which you submit for a proposal, particularly if it's going to be a piece of public art. And so I got the job. And I spent, I was awarded the job at the end of June the year before. They hadn't completely agreed everything, so everything was completely signed off and agreed end of August 2014. This thing has to be in the ground 15th of 12, basically has to be in the ground in June 2015. This is unheard of. This is not normal. So this is what I did. I went to, I got a cabinet maker, a furniture maker, to make a basic maquette for me, a basic chair, and quite simple design. And the plan was to have the back of the chair split, and then I would send each section off and get designs worked on each section. So the thing would become a decorated chair, 12 chairs, 24 panels. So one panel here, one panel there. And each of the panels would be about aspects of the history of Magna Carta, some of them, but aspects of struggles for rights, even abstract ideas of justice. And this gives you an idea as to what was happening. Okay, so I should explain. I worked with a team of various different people. So I worked with, I obviously worked with a furniture maker, but I also worked with a collection of model makers and sculptors working to my designs. They would make something, it would come back to me, and I'd go, not sure about that. I'll adjust it and tweak it and make it right. So this image here is actually, and I wanted to have people who were significant in the history of Magna Carta, represented by things which are not literal to them. So this is Gandhi, and it's Gandhi's spinning wheel, and it's a spinning wheel he invented. It's a portable spinning wheel. This came back from the modeler, and I just thought, this is not good. I should say, by the way, this is a mix of a conceptual piece as well as a handmade piece. So it's a strange way of working. Anyway, and I didn't like that, but this is what I did to it. I basically wrapped loads of thread around it and had the thread unraveling. And because what happened after Gandhi was complex. And the whole point behind what I was trying to make was something which is a memorial, but not a monument. and not a parade of heroes, just a series of ideas, a series of points of discussion. And this is it in progress in the foundry. For a project like this, you have to have the foundry is everything. And also for a project like this, of 12 chairs in a meadow, they've got to be robust. They've got to be dealing with kids jumping up and down over them and stuff like that. So this is the process in the foundry. And in the back there would be stainless steel rod. And yes, very tricky process. And this is it. This is the final piece, the Jurors. And yeah, I couldn't believe it when it was done, to be honest with you. I was relieved. Okay, so as there are 24 panels, and we've got limited time, I'll talk about just a few of them, which is, I think, is
May I ask you a question?
Oh, please, of course, please.
And I want you to talk about the panels.
Please.
But 24 images.
Yes.
To choose themes from over 800 years from
Yeah.
around the world. How did you choose?
Oh,
It must have
waking
been
up, simple. Wake up at 3 o'clock and panic. That's how it works, man. No.
I can relate to that.
No, how was it done? It was done by agonizing and by trying to make things which were. I was trying to make something which was inclusive. So I was reaching out beyond the shores of the UK, beyond Europe, beyond the US. I was trying to think about, okay, fine, what have we got? Have we got something which talks about, say, I don't know, various different countries which people may not think fit into some sort of Magna Carta context. I was actually taking the Magna Carta in the context of it being a linchpin in the ideas of human rights, So I was thinking, right, let's go wide, let's go international.
So what did you do with slavery? What?
Oh, slavery. That was the obvious thing for slavery to a certain point, maybe to talk about certain prominent slave people who were involved in abolition of slavery. For me, I thought, right, let's find the one. I wanted a slave ship. Okay. The obvious one for people in America would be the Amistad. I thought, no, we go with the Zong. The Zong, because the Zong was this quite particular court case. And the court case, which for those of you who may, I presume you may or may not know, the Zong case was slaves thrown overboard because the captain didn't want to feed them, basically thrown overboard. And then the captain then went to try and claim as insurance for his lost property, his lost cargo. It's cargo. It's not human beings, it's cargo.
Right.
And that was a major sort of milestone towards the abolition of slavery. Another image I used was an image of Phyllis Wheatley, who was an African-American poet, born into slavery, and also Mary Prince, who wrote a slave biography. And these things were all used in the abolition protest.
Another image you might talk about was quite beautiful until I realized what it was, is the banyan tree.
Ah, yes, the banyan tree. I don't have an image of this now. This is, the Magna Carta document is, there are a number of them in the UK, but there's one in Australia. And I went to Australia in '97, and what the image is of a banyan tree, a baobab tree, and it's a prison tree, it's an Aboriginal prison tree, basically. You're traveling in the middle of the bush in Australia, you got your Aboriginal prisoners, what do you do with them? I don't know, this is a hollow tree here, shove these guys in the tree. So the image, which I'm afraid I haven't got up here at the moment, is of the tree, but carved into it is the history of Aboriginal struggle in Australia, culminating in the apology, the "we're sorry," where the Australian Prime Minister got up and said, look, we're sorry what we did to you guys, and that was colossal, So the idea was to show things which were sometimes horrific, but also attempts at reconciliation, shall we say. Yeah?
Right, and one more, the Chinese So you have the Chinese characters
Yes,
on one
yes.
side, but then you have that mythical beast. I think you saw
Yes.
an image of it in one of the earlier
Yes,
slides.
yes, yes. It's you can't see it here, but it's a mythical beast in one of these images called I can't speak Mandarin, so I pronounce it as Zesi. It's a mythical beast with a horn and claws, and the idea behind this beast is that it points the horn to the guilty people, and if you're guilty, it will tear you to pieces. And this image is in Chinese law schools, and it's a well-known image. And again, I was trying to get a situation whereby you have people from all over the world coming, people from China coming, and trying to find a way to hook people in who think, well, hang on,
Is
this
that
is
a pun with the horns hooking them in?
No. That's just coincidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the characters I thought that was remarkable because there were words that you would expect, the three characters. I think it was Justice was one.
The Chinese characters.
Yeah, right.
Ren, Li, Yi.
Right.
And this is the Confucian idea of justice. 2 seconds, and I will consult my notes. So Ren, Li, Yi is...
Humanity.
Where are we? Yada, 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 yada. Anyway, it's normally normally I talk without notes, but because this thing is quite complicated, I need notes. Right. So Ren, Li, Yi. Ren, the idea of humaneness. Li, ritual. And Yi, justice. And this translates the idea as a humane leader institutes proper rituals that result in justice for all. So it's a Confucian idea of justice, but it's a very paternalistic idea of justice. And my point is to put these things out there so that you sit in the chairs and you have a discussion. I disagree with that. Oh, I agree with that. You know what I mean? So it's not me dictating, I think this is right. I'm putting things out there to start a conversation. My idea behind this piece of work is that people come along and sit down and they have their own imaginary chairs. So 12 people sit in and they have 12 chairs. So they got 144 imaginary chairs around the thing. So everybody brings their own story, their own thing of what they think. Oh, I disagree with what he's done. Fine, but I would have done this. You see.
Right. Well, I thought those characters were interesting. Now, in my uninformed
Yes, of course.
imagination, those three characters, so ritual, sounds to me like a Chinese synonym for due process, procedure, right? Fair procedure. And that's ritual. And then humanity sounds as if it embraces a concept of inalienable rights. There's the personhood, liberty for individuals. But then justice is, in any language is justice, right?
Justice in any language is justice. But what I was putting this in was about the idea that one person's idea of justice is not another person's idea of justice. That's the kind of point I was trying to make. I was putting in ideas, and even, as I said, it's not the catalogue of heroes. I was putting in ideas and things like that, which I may disagree with. But I'm thinking, you know what, I may disagree with certain aspects of this piece which I've made. The interesting thing about this piece is that it's made in bronze, but I'm making anti-memorial comments on it. You see what I mean? It's complex.
It's subversive.
Exactly. Without you realizing it, it's subversive.
Yeah.
And the important thing about this piece is that the piece only comes to life. It looks like this. It only comes to life when people sit down and take part. I put in a couple of bit more images here because the images up here now, right, to do with on the left of land rights for indigenous peoples. This is a YY Amerindian headdress on a forest. It's hard to see. So on a forest, and the image, these dots there, they represent gold nuggets in a river. And it's about land rights for native peoples in general. But what this is about as well is about the fact that you have undiscovered tribes in the Amazon who have people arguing legal process about the justice for them when they have no concept of our idea of justice. And that's quite a strange concept, but it is necessary. You know what I mean? There are endless arguments going on in Brazil about this. And this one here came up as I was doing this. The Charlie Hebdo incident blew up in France. And this piece is about freedom of speech. And what you're looking at here is a bronze computer motherboard with a screen. And the screen is Speaker's Corner. And by the way, if you want entertainment in London on Sunday and you're in London Sunday, go to Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner is where you can say, within reason, what the hell you like, right? And it's hysterical. It's basically people who have an axe to grind and they go and they shout, and then you can shout back to them and they shout back to you. But, so that's what freedom of speech. But this person here, their hands typing on this motherboard. And this, the idea behind this piece as well is that it can cut both ways. This person can either be a blogger, or this person here is actually a surveillance person. Surveillance. So are they good? Are they bad? You know. And for me, the piece, I was trying to make a piece which, you know, you're not quite 100% sure where you are exactly. You know. Oh, and this are the Chinese characters here, the Mandarin characters. And again, the character, I got the characters done by somebody who did them. There was a debate about how the characters should look. So the characters could have been archaic, as an ancient style of calligraphy, but the calligraphy is a bit less ancient, shall we say, but not everyday. But that's for people for those of you who are experts in Mandarin calligraphy, that's a bit of an added thing, I don't think. Other aspects of justice is this. This one here, the golden rule, how to get in at talking about a whole bunch of issues without, like talking about Islamic law without getting into a whole complex debate about Sharia. And this is the golden rule. And the golden rule basically is well,
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, but it's written in Hebrew, it's written in Arabic, it's written in Urdu, it's written in Mandarin, French, Spanish, and it's all interlocking. Oh, and important, all these decorations there, these are all flowers. And these flowers, because the piece is sitting in a flower meadow, the flowers are all, these are black-eyed Susan flowers. And black-eyed Susan is in the American language of justice, right? The language of flowers. Black-eyed Susan is a flower of justice. And there's obviously a big issue in the UK right now and in Europe about refugees. And I thought I had to do something about that. And that was the piece which is, I suppose, quite up to date. And this thing is, something is happening weird with my presentation. Anyway, so this is basically the kind of research which went into this. This is the MS. I was looking into ideas of refugees at sea, and this is, for heaven's sake, this happened to me. This happened to me before. Not sure what's going on with this thing. Anyway, this is the St. Louis, MS St. Louis, and it was in 1939. It was a German liner, which some of you may well know about this story, taking 915 German Jewish refugees out of Germany. They were denied entry to Cuba, to the US and Canada, and finally accepted in various European countries. And the countries that they went to in Europe, basically a quarter of them died because some of the countries were overrun by the Nazis. This one here is the top image is the Hai Hong, and this is the Hai Hong. This is about the Vietnamese boat crisis, the Vietnamese boat people, and it's the Hai Hong has picked up 2,500 passengers in Vietnam, got caught in a typhoon and damaged. Right, it tried to land in Indonesia, and finally dropped anchor in Malaysian waters. The passengers had paid Vietnamese government to let them leave, and as such, they weren't allowed to. They were accused of people trafficking, so they weren't allowed to land. The Hue Phong below, a similar kind of scenario where 3,000 Chinese refugees were going from Vietnam to Hong Kong. British government stops them, says no, we're not accepting you because they're operating the first port of call. These are the people should take you in. Oh. MV Tampa. This is all, by the way, the research period was very short, intense, and exhausting. Okay, so MV Tampa, 433 Afghan boat migrants, and heading for Australia. The boat denied entry by Australians. This is all internet research. Migrants finally transferred to Australian Navy vessel. Ultimately, they end up in Nauru. The Tampa crew received the Nansen Refugee Award from the UN High Commission for Refugees, while the Australian authorities threatened to take the captain to court for human trafficking. And next, this is the Francisco Catalina, picks up 51 refugees. Spanish trawler picks up 51 refugees from a disabled boat. The trawler heads for Malta to disembark passengers. Maltese army stops vessel, blah, blah, and Maltese government argued that the migrants had been rescued within the Libyan search and air rescue area, and they should be taken to Spain. And this is the final image on this piece, and it's the Ezadeen. This is more up to date. The Ezadeen in this year, January, it's in the Mediterranean, a Sierra Leone registered livestock freighter. It was rescued by an Icelandic Coast Guard ship and an Italian Coast Guard helicopter. It landed in Italy with 360 Syrians who paid a passage of $5,000 each after embarking in Turkey. The crew abandoned them, and they were drifting for 5 days. And this is a finished panel. So all the stories I'm talking about, they're carved into the side here. The reason why I mentioned,
you distilled them all into one image.
I distilled it all into one image. And what you can't quite see here is they're battered by different seas. So it's a bit like a kind of cubist image. So there are currents taking them this way and that, and they're stuck in the middle. But the history is along the side. The history of refugees at sea is along the side, and this is just the latest chapter that's going on with this situation. And yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's hard enough for you to conceptualize one major piece of art with the message, but you've got at least 12, maybe 24 different things going on here. Each of them sounds very complex.
Exactly.
What is your creative process? Where do you get your ideas from?
Okay, as I'm in New York, I'll tell you how it works, right? As in, when I'm here, I go to the Metropolitan Museum, and I just walk around, and I look at stuff, and I just look and look and look and look and look. Ah, yeah, that's how I'm going to solve that problem. That's how I'm going to solve that. And I actually make work while I walk around the Metropolitan Museum. It's one of my favorite places in the world, the Metropolitan Museum, by the way. I'm not just plugging it, you know. But I think as I walk along. I don't necessarily write anything down, or I think and I go, you know, that's not going to work. That's going to work. Or it's very much about, well, how will this thing look, you know? And with the chairs, okay, I'll give an example. With these chairs, the chairs for me felt as if they weren't, I saw one and thought, oh, hang on, that chair back is too high. Let's take 1 inch off. I'm a bit of a control freak, perfectionist about these things. Oh, we need to add 0.5 centimeter onto the front. And these things may not seem important to other people, but they're crucial to me. And it's about, with a piece like this, is about how something is going to look. But the thing with this is because it wasn't done on Photoshop or some virtual reality thing.
It's hard work.
It's a lot of hard work. So there's a lot of visualization. So there's a lot of, it's guessing how something is going to look. And that's...
Well, there was something else. When you were going through, I love the fact that you showed us drawing board ideas that didn't make it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's important.
Okay, so, but even when you decided a direction, you know, to the spinning wheel, Gandhi's spinning wheel, you're saying, that didn't work, I didn't like that, this is what I mean, how do you know you're looking at it? It's for you, or is it what you think other people are going to view?
It's for me, but, good point. The thing with a public work of art, what goes in a gallery and what goes outside, particularly if it's an anniversary of the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta, different things, you know what I mean?
Right. So talk about that. Talk about public art. What's
okay,
public
right.
art?
Public art, it has not to kill somebody for a start, right? That may sound simple, right? But really, that practicality is like, okay, fine, we can't have any bits sticking out here. And I'm talking to the founder and saying, well, Hew, little kiddies, you know, you got to watch out for them, you know, no sharp edges. So that instantly dictates how something is going to look to a certain extent. Right. Now, putting something for the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta, how do you do that? And not compromise yourself, not sell out, not have something wishy-washy, for want of a better word. And at the same time, not alienate people. And that is very tricky. And the trick for that for me is, you know what, Hew, we make it look beautiful, or try to make it look attractive. You know, so some of the images there are concealing quite dark stories. But you know what? Let's make it look bling. That's a weird way of putting it, but
no, I know what you mean.
Let's make it look.
You don't want Velveeta cheese, but you don't want stinking Bishop either. You want to just have something that has a wide appeal to it.
Exactly. The idea behind this is that for somebody to come and sit down, oh, I like that, it's attractive or whatever, but at the same time, you know, even if they don't go into what it's about, they can, you know, I sit down in this chair, I'm tired, and they can relax for a bit. They don't need to take in what the piece is about, really specifically. Fortunately for me, people have started to take on board what the work is about, you know. But the work is much more complex than I could even say in a very short talk. It's
extraordinarily complex, and it's worth seeing. I mean, it's hard to describe it without seeing it, and pictures as good as they are can't do full justice. Again, the setting is incredible. Is that little curtain thing still there, or they get rid of it?
Oh, God, no, that's gone.
Tell them what that is.
Oh, that was...
And why they had to have it there.
You know, because I'm being filmed, I'm like, you know, I'm saying things, but my brain is saying, Hew...
all right, then I'll say it. So,
no, it's good.
So the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William, was there, and he dedicated it, right? But he has to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's just going to stand there, right?
Yeah.
So he has to give him something to do. So they build this little, like, it almost looks like a Punch and Judy theater with a curtain. And then he has to he pulls the string, and the curtain opens, and there's a plaque, dedicated this day by the Duke of Cambridge, blah, blah, blah. And then it's there, right? But it doesn't kind of fit. I mean, all the time.
No, it doesn't fit, but events like this become about protocol, and protocol and bureaucracy, and it's extremely complex, you know. I mean, what you saw there at the ABA Memorial, which you didn't see, I didn't get the guards, I didn't get all those I didn't get all those guys. I was like, damn, man, you know.
Right, you didn't get the beef eaters.
Exactly,
like,
but the thing is, I don't have the special relationship. That's the thing, you know what I mean? You know, but the thing is, though, it looked good, you know what I mean? All the photos in the press were like, damn, you know, I didn't get the guards, you know? But I got the people, you know?
You did.
I got the people.
You had children. So it also has to be not only safe, beautiful, fitting for the occasion, Has to be durable.
It has to be durable.
And that's in a floodplain, and it is, the reason, Derek didn't say this, but the reason it was there was not only because it was flat, so that nobody could get an advantage in elevation, but I suspect that because it was boggy, not quite as much as the quicksand on the wash, but because it was boggy, you couldn't ride a horse with all sorts of armor in it. You would have sunk in, right? So you had to more or less show up.
That's interesting.
Right?
That bit I didn't know.
Yeah.
What I do know.
So describe what happened a year before. When
right. Okay. So I get the job, right? And but before I get the job, I'm worrying about. I tend to come up with design, but at the same time I got design going in my head, I got problems. The problem is very simple. That place is a floodplain, and it really is a damn floodplain. So about a year before this piece went in the ground, just over a year before this piece went on, it was flooded. So where my work is, there were guys kayaking down the road, you know what I mean? It was a major flood. And they say, well, it only floods every 7 years. So I'm like, well, 7 years is kind of pretty regular if you're thinking about a permanent piece of art. So so I looked into what the content of the soil was and stuff like that. But also, on top of this, it's in a site of what we say is a site of scientific interest. It's a very old flower meadow, very, very ancient. So, and people are sitting in it. So it has to be non-toxic, you know what I mean? So the patination is patinated with rust, basically. And the various different colors are waxes. And actually, it's patinated with shoe polish, you know? Very, very, very high quality shoe polish, with beeswax shoe polish. Do you
have to go in and polish it up every once in a while?
Well, once a year, but it's under the. I've just been dealing with this literally 4 days ago. It's under the care of the National Trust. The National Trust, who I hope are hearing me and they're being recorded. This, they're wonderful, right? So these guys are really good. So the upkeep is down to them.
All right.
And there's an aftercare aspect to this thing. It's
anchored in the ground, though, right?
Oh yes.
How substantial?
Quite substantial. There's a massive metal frame. The whole thing is anchored to. Because in England, the constant worry is about metal theft. I don't know what it's like over here, but metal theft is quite a worry, quite a concern. And everybody was coming to me. I love this. I really like this. How is it fixed to the ground? Because it looks as if these chairs are just plunked in the middle of a field, you know, and that's being the purpose of it, you know.
Tell people where they can see your work next, say in the States.
It's well, where are we? Well, it's right at the end. So
oh, okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, keep going.
There we go. So Edward Taylor Nahim, and this is 57th Street, New York. So February next year. Save the date, you know, definitely. Yeah.
Save. We'll send a couple buses up. Should we take some questions from the audience?
Yeah, of course.
Who has a question for Hew Locke? Here's one. Professor Marimba,
sure,
who's a great international human rights lawyer.
Thanks very much. Just a quick comment, actually. I really enjoyed this. It's one of the highlights of this incredible feast that we are having today. But talking about the global theme, this is really the climax of a series of events that I've been involved in this week, which started on Monday with many people don't realize that Monday was actually the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, 70 years. So these are anniversaries that actually have roots in Magna Carta, which was founded on the principle of human rights and eventually gave rise to the Universal Declaration on the Human Rights Movement, which itself was rescued from the ashes of the Holocaust. But that's a very interesting one. But what's interesting too is I was at the United Nations on Monday at the reception at the special invitation of the outgoing president of the United Nations General Assembly, who's handing over. He's from Uganda, and he's a schoolmate of mine. He was 2 years ahead of me in high school and in law school. But what's really remarkable is 70 years ago, there was no such a thing as a nation state of Uganda because it didn't get independence until 1962. So that was a very interesting aspect. But many of you may not realize, but we are also celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Beijing program, which was a landmark in the international women's rights movement, which Hillary Clinton was quite a star. So today is the climax of a lot of incredible anniversaries, and this global theme that your art brings out so powerfully and speaks a global language. It's global, and yet it's also concrete, it's timeless, and it's at the same time it's situated. It's only art can do that. And so I'd like to thank you for this amazing experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very nice, Sam. And, you know, I think you all can tell that there is fundamentally a gentleness and an empathy about Hew Locke, which informs and infuses his artwork. And that is why Surrey got it right in commissioning you to do this. There's a question over here. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. And then we'll go back to Professor Herman.
Beautiful work, Hew. You had done previous works on empire. And I was just wondering if the number 12 has spiritual implications. It was called the kingdom number. Of course, goes back even biblically, 12 tribes, and then you've got 12 rulers in Revelation literature. Was that any consideration of using 12 jurors?
If I'm honest, no, the 12 jurors were 12 jurors. It could have been, I mean, some countries it's 16. Some countries don't have a jury system in that way. The 12 seemed to be significant. And obviously, I couldn't not get 12 angry men out of my head, that's obvious, But it seemed to be, when people think of a jury as a general thing, that's the number people think of, and that was the reason for it.
I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that issue.
Yeah,
You got to be
yeah.
careful about numbers with religion and justice. I mean, I think the priest I heard this Sunday was hitting the sacramental wine a little bit too much. He was talking about 12 commandments and 10 disciples. So, Professor Herman.
This is a wonderful piece. I'd love to see it live. And one of the things that I would be fascinated to see is how the public actually interacts with it, whether people sit in the chairs and have the discussions you envisioned. So have you had occasion either to watch the public interacting or to
Okay.
hear stories about what's come up?
That's it up there. No, what you're looking at, well, on the right is me showing Prince William around the piece. On the left is when the piece for me really worked. This is at the end of the day, the Magna Carta anniversary day. The police are relaxing now. All the dignitaries are gone because they were like, the security was extremely high. Anybody going on that site on that day had to be security. It was 6 weeks security clearance roughly for that. So it's serious business. But by the way, what I'm sitting on there, the image I'm sitting on there is the justice symbol, but from Egypt, ancient Egypt, the scales of Ma'at, the goddess Ma'at, where your heart is weighed against a feather. If your heart is lighter than a feather, you were good and you went nicely into the afterlife. If your heart was heavier than a feather, then you were in trouble. Anyway, so the police naturally gravitated to this. They instantly recognized this as a symbol of justice, and they photographed themselves without me there. And then And then they said, "Oh, come and sit down with us." So I'm not being arrested, you know. I'm just sitting there with these guys, and they all then sat down impromptu in all the 12 chairs. And that's when I thought, this thing is working, boy, because when you make a piece of work like this, it needs to have connection with people. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It dies, you know. And from that moment on, it does work. There's no image I can show you now. I went back there recently. I sent a photographer from my gallery in London to photograph the piece. And I have to send him again because the ground is bare. There's grass all around the whole field. But in amongst these chairs, there's no grass. The footfall has been so heavy that they killed the grass off, stone dead. You know, for me, no grass. It's actually a successful piece of work, you know. But
You put gravel in, maybe?
Sorry?
You put gravel in?
Well, we'll see. I mean, they're saying in winter the grass will grow better and stuff like that. But what was great was to see people putting their babies and their kids on to have them photographed against these chairs. I mean, it was, or people bringing their daughters or their mothers to it. I sent somebody else to photograph the piece recently, and the guy arrives early in the morning, almost crack of dawn, right? He had an hour and a half before people started turning up, you know, and that was it. That was the end of the photo shoot. So for me, that's when it starts to work, you know.
Well, I guess so. That's a good sign. How are we doing for time? Chris, when is it time?
Yeah.
Okay, so February 2016, 57th Street,
57th Street.
the Tyler and AM Gallery. And when you're in England, it's a short distance from London. Check out the 12 Jurors at Runnymede. Hew Locke, thank you for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Cheers.